Welcome to the BonsPodShow. This week I'm joined by Brenda Bence, who's recognized as the world's top 10 brand coaches. Brenda started her brand in a small room and has now grown it to more than 30 countries. This podcast will talk about her journey and branding. Feel free to like and subscribe to this channel. And lastly, enjoy the episode. Hi, Brenda. Thank you so much for joining me for the show. How are you?
I'm doing great.
First of all, I would begin by saying that it's such a pleasure to have one of the world's leading professional leadership coach with me on the show. It's the first time for me. And with that, and you've also published so many books. So let's begin by this entire journey. How did you develop this interest towards it? And what was the starting point for you?
Towards coaching.
Yeah.
So RJ, I started my corporate career in a company, Procter & Gamble, that from the minute you walked in, you were either being coached or you were learning how to be a coach. And this was long before coaching was popular. Mm-hmm. And they were quite ahead of their day. And I loved it. I flourished in it. I loved being a coach. I loved learning how to coach others and being coached. And so when I left that company after several years, I thought, well, all companies are like this, right? You know, all companies have coaching. And of course, that wasn't the case. I actually ended up going to another company where there was no coaching at all. And I could definitely feel the difference. So I decided in that new company to implement a coaching culture within the division I ran. I had about 250 people. I was going to implement a coaching culture, and this was across multiple continents. And within 18 months, we went from a 10% market share below the number 2 in the market. So we were number 3 at 10% to number 1 in the market with a 25-point spread. Right. And I thought that's an example of what coaching does. So I said, when I started my own business, I said, I'm going to get into coaching. And I did.
When you say that you started your own company, you moved and you shifted from a corporate environment. Talk to me about that transition in becoming an entrepreneur. How was that like?
Yeah. You know, RJ, on the outside, corporate jobs look great.
Yeah.
You know, money and perks and high-level titles and the big offices and the private jets when you're lucky and all that, right? But the truth is, it's a pretty exhausting existence. And I worked 14 to 16-hour days, many times 7 days a week. And I was managing 4 continents. And it was tough. And kind of an event happened. And I decided it was time to make a shift. It was time to start my own. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know where I was going exactly, but I knew what I was walking away from. And I was ready. I'm very grateful for those years as a corporate exec, but I was really ready. And so that's kind of how it all came about. I cleared out a second bedroom in my home, and that became my office, and I went from this big, perky, office to this with lots of staff to me sitting in my second bedroom.
When you say that you transition from it, and when you're talking about this, you're moving from an office to basically setting up your new office in your house or something like that. For most of entrepreneurs, it's been that way. But at the same time, I've always asked this question and wondered, what about self-doubt? How do you get over that, or how do you strike it? Because all of a sudden, those perks that you're talking about, they're gone now. You need to work on yourself. How do you do that then?
Well, mine is a bit of a funny story. It happened my very first week of running my own business. And I was sitting in that extra bedroom with my desk and thinking what have I done? But I knew what I wanted to stand for, RJ. And at that time, it was very clear: branding. That was my expertise. That's what I knew. And that's what I really was passionate about. And I still am. But I swear to you, this is a true story. Day 3, it's Wednesday of my first week of running my own business. The phone rings. Mm-hmm. I pick it up. They say, hi, this is a very big corporation. We heard about you starting up your own business, and we'd love to have you come in and work with our sales team. Like, sales team. I'm branding. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to say no, because I knew exactly what I wanted to stand for. So I said, I appreciate you reaching out. Thank you very much. I actually stand for branding. If you ever have a branding opportunity, please call me. Hung up the phone. No kidding. Thursday comes. I get a phone call. It's someone, another big corporation, wants to hire me to come in and work with their HR team. And here's the thing, I could have done sales, I could have done HR. I know because I'm enough of a general manager, but I knew I wanted to stand for branding. So Thursday, my first week, I am literally shaking on the phone saying, no, thank you, but if you know of somebody who, would like branding, please call. Hung up the phone. I promise you this is the truth. On Friday, I got a phone call from my first branding gig, and that was it. From that moment on, I stayed true to course. And I guess I look back now and I realize I was really focused on possibility. I was not going to allow the fear. It's really easy when you're an entrepreneur to just take anything, just take whatever business comes my way. But I knew what I wanted to stand for, and I had seen the possibilities that I could embrace. And I went for it, and voila, there it goes. And it worked brilliantly. Yeah.
Absolutely. You said that you've spoken about branding. Tell me, how did you find a personal brand within you? How did you get this or create a brand within yourself, so which has become so popular and had led to so much success right now?
Well, the key thing for me is that I have all these years of working with big corporate brands, and I literally ran $2 billion businesses brands. So I know how great brands get to be great brands, and it's not by accident. So as I was sitting one day reflecting on this, I thought, wait a minute, I love this sweet spot between leadership and branding, and I wanted to bring that together, not just for others, but for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took the same elements that go into defining a big corporate brand, and there are 6 elements that define the success or the failure of every brand that you know and love.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, if I take those same 6 and apply them to myself and apply them to others, I can come up with a system. And that's what I did. I came up with a system, and I was my first guinea pig. I used my own brand with those 6 elements, and I stayed true to those 6. It became my brand positioning statement, and I held true to that. Far better than a mission statement, far better than a vision statement. I needed to have a brand positioning statement so that I knew what I could stand for in the marketplace. And now I do this all the time with leaders all around the world, and
Right.
I've written books on it. And yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when you say that the brand position, you positioned your brand and you stuck to the points that you were talking about earlier. Tell me, what are the early mistakes that few, I'd say, entrepreneurs or the clients that you've worked with are making in terms of branding? One of the one that you highlighted earlier is like taking everything, whatever is coming to their option, they'll just simply take it. That's a really good point. But what other mistakes you may have noticed?
So I think the number one thing is not being consistent. You've got to be consistent.
With the work,
with what you say your brand is. I'll give you an example. RJ, oh, I'm reliable. Oh, RJ, did I mention I'm reliable? Oh, and I'm reliable. I want to make sure you know that, right? Those are just words. You will know I'm reliable because I show up on time, because I deliver projects on time to the specifications you ask for, because I'm there when you need me. Where actions speak far, far greater than words. The way we act, the way we react, the way we look, the way we sound, that speaks far more than just words. And we have to really be clear on that. So I think the number one thing I see is that people are not consistent. People are not consistent. And you can see it in any great brand. If Nike, which stands for Just Do It, suddenly started doing a promotion for couch potatoes, it just doesn't fit, right? And we have to be the same way. If I'm going to stand for something, then I have to be that by the way I act, react. Everything about me has to be that. And that's how you build a brand. If it really can be that simple.
Mm-hmm. That's very well said. But at the same time, when you say this word, when you say that I'm reliable, or when you associate yourself with these words, how exactly do you think that people should find a personal brand within them? Because of this overshared atmosphere, overshared social media, you're like, I want to be like him, I want to be like her, but you're not being true to you. How do you do that?
Well, first of all, people will know in a heartbeat if you're not authentic. If you're not authentic, people will know. You know why? Because a brand is the way you want others to perceive, think, and feel about you. Now, the first time you think about a brand, there's the perception in branding is reality. It just is. And so way people perceive, think, and feel about you, guess what? Is happening right now. So the perceptions, thoughts, and feelings, you need to try to control them. Well, how do you do that? It starts with an inside job. You have to think about how others are perceiving, thinking, and feeling about you. And the most important part is the others, not you. And so all great brands are others centric, and so if you're trying to just imitate someone else, people will know. They will absolutely know that it's not true. So there's 3 things that I always say you want to do to build a strong brand. Number 1, you must define it. You got to be crystal clear. And remember that others are the ones owning your brand, because your brand exists in the minds of other people. So you really have to be others centric. That's the most important part. Often people say, oh, branding yourself, that's all about me. No, it's completely the opposite. Your brand is how others perceive, think, and feel about you. So you need to focus on the others. And I think a lot of people get confused on that. How can I focus on others if I'm trying to be J-Lo or trying to be, somebody? I can't, because that won't be authentic. So people will know that, number 1. Number 2 is communicate it. You have to communicate your brand, and as I said, it has to be wildly consistent. From the minute you start, be consistent. I've worked with clients. I'll give you an example. I had one client. I did 360 feedback on him, and his boss and peers told me one story. His direct reports told me a completely different story. What does that tell me? It's not being consistent. He's acting differently with those 2 different groups. You cannot build a brand unless you're being truly consistent across all of those audience types you have in your brand.
Right.
And the third one is that you must avoid damaging your brand. And I share a lot of common pitfalls in several of my books. Master the Brand Called You, Would You Want to Work for You, Leading You, all of those cover damaging errors that I see people make all the time, and avoid them, right? Let's avoid them.
The damaging errors, what do you mean by that? Making a wrong product? What does that mean?
It can be a whole host of things. It depends on the situation you're in. But, number 1, I've already mentioned one of them. One of the biggest errors that I see is thinking that my brand is all about me. It's not. It's not even close. My brand is how others perceive me. So I must be other-centric. So am I listening enough to them? Am I asking them what they need from me? And here's another thing. One of them is also focusing too much on the functional need of those people or what have you. What does that mean? We often focus on the functional need. What services do I need to provide at work? What does my job description say? Or what does my company do? But the truth is, those are functional needs. We need to focus on emotional needs. You see, people won't remember what you did. People won't remember what you said. They will remember how you made them feel. That's a quote from Maya Angelou, right? And I think that's really true, particularly in branding yourself or your business. If you are there during times of struggle, you are there and you provide trust, reliability, you're honest, those soft emotional things are going to be remembered far more than what you did to deliver, great outcomes. I'm not saying the great outcomes aren't important. They are. Right. But you need to focus on that emotional piece. Are you, especially today, during all these crazy times, people need to know you're going to be there for them. Yeah.
I think with that, the certain form of reliability that I feel, especially from a company like Tata, because the connection that they have, I can really understand this point that you're talking about. And while talking about your books, how did that come in the picture? The first book was published in 2008, if I'm not wrong. How did that come in the picture?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking, and good research. Yes, so it's been about 13 years now. I've published 11 books in that time. How did it come about? It's an interesting story, and I won't share all the details, but I'll give you the big picture. I am also a professional speaker, and I was engaged to speak with 5 other speakers. We were going to do an event in one city and then an event in the same event in a different city. In the first city, at the end of the day, we all spoke, and one particular person said, wow, I am just really blown away by what Brenda shared, and I was really impressed by that. Some of that stuff I've never heard before. It's amazing. I'm so excited to learn from you, blah, blah, blah. It was very kind. It was, oh, thank you very much. The next 2 days later, we're speaking in a different city, and this person spoke before I did, and they presented my material, like completely, basically gave my speech. And I thought, and they say imitation is the finest form of flattery. Yeah, well, it was a lot of imitation there. So I thought to myself, if it's that good that someone's willing to steal it right in front of me, I better get it down in a book.
Right.
So I decided I reached out to publishers. Publishers were very interested, but they all said, oh yeah, we will work with you, but it's going to be 24 months. I'm like, nah, I can't wait 24 months. So then we decided to self-publish. And it literally took 9 months from start to finish, which is Herculean if you've ever done a book. But I just said, I've got to get it out there because, I just wanted to make sure that I could own that information because it came from years and years of experience and work. So that was the true story.
For the books, there's this one interesting title that I read, which is How You Are Like a Shampoo. Tell me about the book and how did you come on this title? I'm pretty sure this clip could be used as a promo because this would be a really interesting one.
So how you are like shampoo. RJ, picture this. You're standing in a grocery store aisle, okay? And you're standing in the shampoo aisle. And as far as you can see this way and that way, there's shampoo. Just every brand, every possible SKU, all that. How do you decide which one to buy? And my premise in personal branding, as I said, it's built around the way companies build mega brands. And there are these 6 elements that go into defining. And every one of those shampoo brands has those 6 elements. I know that because I used to market shampoo. Mm-hmm. I worked on major billion-dollar brands. So we're all trying to find out what makes us unique. What would get a customer or a boss to choose you for an assignment or for a job? What would make them choose you? What makes you different as you're lining up on that grocery store aisle? How would you be different? And so I wanted to drive that premise between company branding and personal branding and how you can really apply those exact same concepts to you as an individual. So plus I thought it might stick out a little bit on the shelf.
The titles of your book, one of your book is also mentioned saying that smarter branding without breaking the bank, where you mentioned the 5 marketing strategies that businesses can use while making a brand without basically damaging the investments and other forms of things. So tell me about those strategies. Tell me about the marketing strategies.
Well, so I wrote that book because so many big companies have resources. They have endless resources to build strong brands. But small businesses, because I know I started my own brand, you don't have that big, deep pocket approach. So I wanted people to understand that it doesn't have to be difficult. You can actually build an incredible brand for yourself without having to spend a lot of money. And so I share 5, actually I call them strategies, but 5 assets you already have. You have them, I have them. Small businesses all have these 5. I don't have time to go into all 5, RJ, but I can share with you what I think is the most important one, and that is your brand positioning. We've touched on that a little bit, but I cannot go deep enough into how important this is. We think that brand positioning is for big businesses or big brands, and that smaller brands don't really need that. Completely disagree. It's just the opposite. Smaller brands, SMEs like ourselves, we need to have positioning more than big brands because big brands have a lot of money they can throw at their positioning. If we are going to do it on a limited budget, we need to make sure our brand positioning is extraordinarily specific and really, really clear to our customers. And it's going to draw our customers in by the way we have positioned ourselves and that it's unique in the market. So again, your brand is the way customers perceive, think, and feel about you, and that's happening right now. So if you don't take charge of your brand positioning, if you don't if you don't take the bull by the horns, if you would, and do it yourself, then you are allowing your customers and potentially your competitors to define your brand for you instead of you taking charge. And by the way, I have a lot of complimentary articles on my website. If you just go to brendabence.com and look under free resources, there's a ton of articles there that can help on that too.
Right.
Yeah.
And to the people who are viewing this on YouTube, you can also find the link in the description below about the website. And while talking about this, what are some of the new projects that you're working on? Especially in this COVID time, people have time to introspect. What about that?
Yeah, there is. It's a crazy, interesting time, isn't it, right now? So I'm so excited about the launch of my most recent book. As I mentioned, I've published a lot of books in the last 13 years, but this one, it took me 4 years. And that's 4 times longer than normal. It was really, really challenging. So some books I was able to launch like 2 a year, but it was really challenging. And when I started writing this book, I didn't realize what was going to be happening today and with all the COVID and the disruption. But basically, I'm so excited about this book. It's called The Forgotten Choice. And what it really does is it focuses on the inside job of leadership, the inside job of self-leadership, because that's the foundation of everything. And really, the premise is this, RJ, that in a world where everything is changing, there's massive disruption going on outside of us, right? Mm-hmm. The way we consume, communicate, connect, I mean, everything has changed in the past 18 to 24 months. Everything's changed, right? When everything outside of you is in a state of disruption, leverage the one thing inside of you that can actually make real, lasting, long-term, and positive change. And that is your mindset. That is your mindset. You see, if you want to build a strong brand for yourself, remember, it's the way others perceive, think, and feel about yourself. You've got to perceive, think, and feel about yourself the way you want them to think about you. So it's all tied into branding, into leadership, and it really is this how to master the inside job of what we're going through right now. So as I said, I had no idea that it would be launching this book during this very appropriate time, but it really is a time to be reminded of a foundational choice we have, and at every moment, it's kind of based on some of those moments I shared with you. Am I focusing on possibility, potentiality, or am I focusing on fear? What could go wrong? What's not going right? And I think that mindset shift is foundational to success, particularly right now during these challenging times.
Oh, and I can't wait for the book to release. And now finally coming down to the final few questions. And these are some questions that you could say that I would love to take advice from you from this conversation. And you spoke about COVID, you spoke about the time that we are living in, crazy times. But in this, how important do you think we need to develop a personal brand within ourselves? Like, I'm not talking about business. I'm not talking about anything. Just being a person who's first of all more employable for people who want to be more employable, and second, who want their voice to be out there. How do they build a brand for themselves as a person individually?
Yeah, well, and that's what, a lot of these books are about. I think the key thing is, again, it's an inside job first. If we're so busy focusing on what we're doing to try to impress other people, and what we're doing, the way we act, react, if we're only focusing there, we're missing the point. Because great brands start inside first and foremost. And are you being consistent? There's one element, there's 6 elements that go into define your brand. And there's one that is probably the most critical when it comes to being consistent. And that's what I call your brand character. And think of it as kind of the foundation of a house that you're building for yourself, the brand character. And I like to use this exercise. What are the 5 words you'd like people to think of you? Let's say you're walking out of a room, or you're saying goodbye, you're walking away, and people turn to each other and say, wow, he's really, what 5 words do you want people to say about you? And when you define those 5 words and you're really crystal clear about them, that becomes your foundation. And no matter where you go, what you do, no matter whether it's at work, at home, in the community, in your religious institution, whatever, you embrace those 5 words, you will build a brand for yourself. Because it's that simple. What's the feeling people have when they leave the room? You know, I would say a brand is built when you leave a room. Every time you leave a room, you're building a brand. What's the feeling you leave behind? And we woefully underestimate this. But your brand starts first and foremost inside and emanates outwards. So quit worrying about how other people are seeing you. Am I getting enough likes on my social media accounts? You know, instead focus on, am I doing the inside job of making me the best me I can be?
Right.
Start there.
I think this exercise I might begin it after the podcast. And coming to the end of the questions, you've had some excellent success in your career. You're recognized as one of the world's leading leaders in coaching, and you're also a very accomplished author. So tell me, what's that factor that is always pushing you to do better, to keep on working towards greater heights? You have achieved success, but what's more after the success? How do you keep pushing it?
Well, so first of all, I think you have to know what you want. That sounds silly. Of course, we think we know what we want. But I mean, what do you really want at the end of all this? What does success look like for you? And I think to get there, we have to embrace possibility, not fear. You know, it's really focusing on what I call the positive twin of, not the evil twin of, what if. There's 2 different what ifs. The first what if is, what if I fail? What if I try to start this business and it doesn't work? What if I take on this new position and I fail? What if I get married and it doesn't work out? What if that's the negative. That's the fear-based what if. And I really encourage people to focus on the possibility-based what if. And that sounds like, what if I started my own company? What if I decided to go for a job that's 2 times higher than I even anticipate? What if I just give this relationship my all? What if I decide to set a goal for XYZ, right? The difference of them are dramatic, and one is steeped in fear and one is steeped on possibility. And when you live a life that is steeped on possibility, I trust me, every day is an adventure. It's just fun because you wonder what's coming next. And you may not know, but it's okay. And don't be afraid to go out there and just embrace possibility. We are creating our lives every single day. So, but please remember to do that as an inside job and then be other-centric.
Well, Brenda, that's very well said. And I think with that, we've come down to the end of this podcast. And I really enjoyed this conversation. And I wish you all the best for your book and for all the and for all the future talks that you would be holding. And this has been a great conversation for me, and especially in creating this brand as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, RJ. Thank you.
If you like this episode, please subscribe to my channel. You could also hear it on other audio platforms. The links are in the bio. And I hope to see you again for this BonsPodShow.